Well, hello and welcome to the CRM Zen Show, where we talk about all things Zoho. This is episode 333, Time to Tool Around, recorded for Friday, December 13th, 2024. From Zenatta Consulting, I'm Tyler Colt.
And I'm Greg Belnap. Let's get right on into the show.
Let's do it. Pretty busy week this week. I think next week Brett will be back and everyone will have to say a fond farewell to Greg, at least for a couple episodes. Always a pleasure having you on. We do have a pretty busy week this week, so let's get right on into the news after a quick word from our sponsor.
Are you struggling to get your team trained in using Zoho effectively? Considering the hefty costs of team meetings and onboarding sessions dedicated to Zoho training, there has to be an easier way. Say hello to efficiency with our Zoho team training courses. Zoho CRM made easy. Become a project management pro, top-tier customer support, and maximize your marketing impact. Are you ready to equip your team? Start today at zenatta.com/training and let us lead the way.
All right, so let us jump on in. First story here comes from Bigin. I am noticing over the last month or so, lots of Bigin updates. It was kind of quiet about Bigin for quite a while, but now they are kind of raring back into action. So this is a set of updates here. So kind of two of them bundled into one. First, they have some enhanced fields that are going to be available in call creation and updates. And they've also added the ability to add custom fields. So the main ones that they've added as defaults here are the purpose, the outcome, and the reason for outgoing and incoming calls. This just lets you kind of categorize these. A really big one that gets used all the time is call result, right? Kind of that scenario of I'm going to call a lead, I'm going to leave a voicemail. I can log that as the result, and then maybe it triggers a follow-up in a couple days. Or if I were to log a call result as like not interested, maybe it updates the lead status, does whatever it needs to do. They've also added custom fields here. So the ability to kind of add new sections or new fields to there, including pick lists, texts, numbers, and dates. So really nice across the board. Bigin just gets more and more functionality. I mean, it's closing the gap every day. It gets a little closer. It doesn't have Deluge yet. That's the big holdout, I think, that Bigin doesn't support. But these are nice features. And if you're using it for a lot of outbound prospecting, which I would imagine people are, this is definitely the kind of stuff that you need.
Yeah. The one thing that, as it does creep closer and closer to, being on par with CRM, I hope we don't end up with the same kind of like weird, like rivalry disconnect between like campaigns and marketing automation of like two apps that are basically doing the same thing, but some get some updates that some people want and others get other updates that other people want. And so it's hopefully Bigin stays like the nice, like carved out. Yeah, this is what you use Bigin for, and then CRM.
I do feel like some of that's happening already, especially on the mobile side, where like the CRM mobile app. I mean, let's be candid, it's not great. It's pretty basic. It doesn't have a lot of advanced features, and you see it so many of those come to Bigin, right? Like when Apple started allowing widgets, right? Little like widget call outs in the phone. Bigin had them updated in like 2 weeks. So you could see your meetings that day, your calls that day, just as a little pop-out widget. CRM still doesn't have that, to my knowledge. It's still just not a thing. And so the challenge is that, sometimes you think, okay, let's sync CRM to Bigin. There's a pre-built integration, works really well. And then people can use Bigin on the mobile and CRM on the browser just to have more functionality. Problem is, Bigin doesn't have a leads module. So you can't really always do that and use it as that kind of extension. So it's a tricky one. We're never really sure what to say when people ask, what the why of this. It's something that we'll just keep learning about over time. But it is a great tool. It is really nice, especially if your model doesn't require leads. Then you can kind of do that CRM sync and get the best of both worlds. So nice update, especially for calls. I mean, this is kind of need to have stuff for building out a process centered around calling out of a CRM. Next update here coming from Zoho Creator. So this is some upcoming updates for December. Looks like Deluge AI assistance, error messages, QR and barcode generating, rich text fields and multi-line fields for reports, export customization, and some extended localization. Greg, as one of our kind of resident creator nerds, do any of these stick out to you as something that you're excited to take for a spin?
Well, I mean, definitely the Deluge AI assistants. I mean, because they're talking about how you can, and this is specifically for creator, and if people have never done Deluge in creator before, it's got a slightly different like dialect of Deluge to it,
Yeah.
like the way you interact with records. It's uses kind of this more like dot notation for accessing like field
It's
values
a
and
little
things
more
like
like
that.
Python or a little less like JavaScript. It's kind
Yeah,
of a high-level way you might compare and contrast. Yeah.
right. But yeah, so they're gonna start using, or they're gonna start making a Zia button available for you to kind of give Zia a prompt of like, write a script that does X. So
Mm.
like I think they have an example there of um or I think was I was just kind of like scrubbing through. There's a video link, and I was kind of scrubbing through it, and like one of the scripts that they said was um calculate the number of business days between today and the end of this month, or
Mm.
create a list variable called products with the values milk and bread, and then add butter to the list and print the values of the products variable. So like
Yep.
it's stuff where you can like tell Zia like in simple terms what you want it to have happen, and then it should
Yeah.
create the code for you. Of course, as always, I imagine a big asterisk of uh when this first starts rolling out,
Yeah.
probably going to have some uh some hallucinations, I think is the term, right? Of
Yep.
saying like, yeah, you can do this. So I wouldn't be surprised if when it starts out, Zia might give you some code that maybe doesn't actually compile right. 'Cause,
Yeah.
um, the other obviously the other thing is that I would always recommend that people try to start with like simple prompts to do snippets of your code, and then see if you can like
Yes.
connect those pieces together. Because
Agreed.
even if Zia does write like even if Zia is able to write like a more complex piece of code for you, if you have to change anything or anything is going wrong, and if you don't know like what it's doing or why it's doing it, then you won't be
Yeah.
able to debug that.
Yep.
They also have another option here for optimizing scripts, where you copy a section of your code and then tell Zia to optimize it, and then Zia will like refactor it, uh,
Okay.
which I don't know.
Well,
I
we'll
will be
see.
interested to see what. Yeah, we just have to wait and see what kind of stuff this stuff gives back. Like I wonder how much of this is going to be similar to like the little magic wand button for rearranging things in Zoho
Mm.
Flow, which many of our people on our team are like, never hit that button. It's
Never hit
never
that
gonna
button. Hate that
never
button.
hit that
Yeah.
button. It's never
Never
gonna
hit
put
that
blocks where
button.
you want. So I
I'll lay
do
it out
wonder.
manually every
Yep.
time.
So that's the one that I am most interested in, to see like
Yeah.
what will this be able to accomplish for us.
Yeah, but like you're saying, I mean, this is an interesting term for it. Zoho saying that the AI empowers citizen developers. I think that would mean like maybe less advanced developers. I'm not really sure what they mean by that. But again, and this has been a common theme, I think, throughout a lot of this year, is I am always a big fan of when Zoho rolls out a tool that lowers the technical competency requirement to get a
No.
certain thing done. Right. There are a lot of pieces of script that are really big and complicated that like maybe I wouldn't trust an AI to do. But a lot of people, they might be in a creator app and they're just like, man, I've got this date time and I need it formatted a certain way. Right.
Ugh.
And like, as you know, that can be a bit of a pain in the butt. But if I could just chat an AI tool and say, hey, take this date parameter and make it look like this, and it just gives me a line to do that, pretty nice.
Yeah.
Or also just a lot of those like little odds and ends, like write me a piece of code where when I create a case in Creator, it pulls the address from the related account, right? Like little things
Okay.
like that I would say I'm really confident it would get right? Like a piece of code of that scope, it's like, I'm pretty confident it'll do it. So another one here, I mean, like the example they give, write a script to fetch the number of leaves taken by employees and send an email to the admin. It's like, yeah, why not? So that's really exciting. I'm assuming this is going to come to other apps over time as well. So be on the lookout for that. A couple other ones like we mentioned, some better error messaging, QR code generating, and barcode. Barcode's actually pretty nice. Like we do actually find a decent number of examples of where we can extend Zoho inventory functionality by building a little creator app, maybe to store like a bill of materials and a little production Kanban board. So being able to do barcodes in there, I could see like, I can think of a couple clients off the top of my head that might really like that. But yeah, nice updates across the board. Really excited to start seeing the Deluge AI stuff. Even if like it's not going to be perfect, if it means that writing a piece of code takes 30 minutes instead of an hour, awesome, right? That's just a win. So we will keep you in the loop as we start to play with those AI tools. Next update here for Zoho FSM. This is equipment scheduling for field service operations. So important thing, I'm actually going to skip to the bottom and we're going to define a couple things and how they're going to use it here because it's important to know. So they have these three categories of essentially things, right? Items, goods, equipment, whatever it may be. You have a part, which is like your product list. You have an asset, which is a product deployed at a customer location that they own. So that's like, I've installed a solar panel, its serial number is 12345, and it's owned by Greg at his house. And then there is equipment, which is another type of asset, like a power drill or whatever it may be, that we own, that we bring to a location to do a job. And the equipment is really what's new here. So what FSM is going to allow us to do is essentially create a database of equipment. So that could be a drill, a hammer, a whatever it may be for you. You can store that equipment inside of FSM, and then you can essentially allocate it to crews and to jobs at a particular location. Now, if I were you and I were thinking about this, there might be some little minor stuff that isn't worth logging in this equipment database, right? Like a hammer, right? Like a hammer's $10, maybe not worth the process of going through it. But if you're a large company that does fulfillment services and you have a lot of expensive equipment, you do want to know where that is, right? Like maybe you do an inventory check and you're like, oh, we're missing a generator, right? Like a $4,000 generator. Yeah. Nice to be able to go look up the serial number and go, hey, last time we used that was at Greg's house. Is it there? Is it still there? Did we forget it? Can we give him a call, right? Like, can we figure this stuff out? So that is actually really nice. Just because, again, while not every user of FSM has really expensive equipment that they need to track like this, a lot of people probably do. So really cool. You can essentially just load it up, associate it with your work orders and your jobs, and make sure that everything is staying tracked.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what would be like a good litmus test for what's the threshold. If it's something that here's a question. If you lost it, would you start to sweat about having to replace it? There you go.
Yeah, if so, go ahead and log it in here and make sure you know where it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so nice one there. I'm assuming that's going to make some people really happy. FSM just gets better and better. It still has a couple little rough edges, but overall, a really great app. And we're finding more and more use cases that it satisfies where we can use it for our clients. Next update here for Zoho Sign. Again, in the world of not everybody needs this, but the people who do will be very happy. Zoho Sign now supports witness signing. So what is witness signing? So witness signing is basically the idea that I'm going to have a contract with Greg, and we are both committed to the terms of this contract. But we agree that we want a verifiable way where someone independent who's not bound by the terms of the contract to verify that it happened. So maybe we add Freddie as a witness to say like, hey, in Greg and I's upcoming legal battle, he's aware that this contract was signed, but he's not a party to it in the sense that he's obligated by the terms of the contract. So this isn't necessary in a lot of cases, but where it is, it's completely necessary. So essentially you're able to add a witness who signs in a place, but it's identified in the back end that they're not actually signing as a party in the contract, just as a witness to it. So you'll be able to add those to your signed documents and send them out for that additional signature. So really nice. I like the idea of this quite a lot. I'd imagine for larger organizations or for bigger contracts, this might be a need to have for a signature tool.
So I think, is it is it just a different like field that you put on the templates when
It's
you're sending
probably a
it out?
user type. It's probably a user type would be my guess. So, like you'll kind of have like the pre-filled by us, signer 1, signer 2. I'd imagine there might be a user type for like witness, and then you would probably drop like a signature field into the document for them to sign on like an identified space for a witness.
Okay, yeah. If you want to just for any of our YouTube viewers, you want to click on the help documentation button, then they bring you to a nice witness signing one. Yeah, you can see that. Yes, just like you said, it's an extra like user type, and then in your template, you'll still drag in like a signature field that's assigned to that witness.
Got it.
Rather than,
But like a witness looks like it's connected to a signer. So like it's a subset of on Zilker is the witness. And you're able to add that in. Yeah, that is nice. I like that. I'd imagine, again, 9 out of 10 users probably don't need it, but the ones that do absolutely need it. So it is great to have just as that extra layer of security. Next one here, this is pretty nice. And funny, we were talking before the show, this is actually going to help us in an implementation we just picked up recently. So the Office platform, which is basically like the back-end platform behind Sheets and Writer and Show, has added a new API that will allow us to convert documents to different formats. So that's pretty cool, right? This is like taking a Word document, converting it to PDF, and then uploading it somewhere, or doing the inverse, or turning a PDF into HTML and then putting it in the body of an email, right? Like there's actually a lot of ways where we might envision using this. So Greg, I'd imagine this is something that we're going to want to document and start using internally.
Yeah, well, so the other thing is that this is labeled, like all of the help documentation is labeled under Zoho Office Integrator. So I don't know if you have to have specifically Office Integrator in order to use it, because it's not just like a writer API. It's it's like the find it again. I mean, it is under like Zoho Writer, but it is you have to use the Office Integrator API domain, not just like the writer API domain. So I don't know if this is like for everybody to be able to use, and I still get a little bit confused as to how you actually set up Office. Like Office Integrator is if you're like setting up like the whole Office suite for your team. Do I have that right?
I think so. It's kind of like, I think about it, this isn't a perfect analog, but it's kind of like the phone bridge equivalent of the Office suite, where it's like this unified place for integration activities to happen. So think like a Zoho One user very likely has access to Office Integrator to do this type of stuff in the background. I could be mistaken. YouTube commenters, leave a comment below if I'm off base on that, but I'm pretty sure anyone who has like the full Office suite would be able to hit these APIs.
Oh, and it looks like that even if it's not, there is like a free pricing plan with like 50 API calls a month.
Okay.
So, so anybody could use this, but you might have to, download or like or make an account with the actual like Office Integrator app. But in any case, yes, it is nice to be able to have a way to, and actually, I imagine that this probably came up. So the original implementation that we were trying to use was also with Office Integrator APIs. It was adding a watermark to a document, but the watermark API does not work on a PDF. You can't watermark on a PDF, at least not with Office Integrator current APIs. So we were actually going to use a third-party conversion to convert the PDF into like a Word doc, and then you could put the watermark,
and then you turn it back into a PDF.
Yeah, but it sounds like we might be able to keep all of it inside of Zoho, and we still have to see like how nice of a conversion is this.
That is a big category there. Yeah, good call out, because I'm sure like there have been times in the past where for a client I've needed a Word doc and they've given me a PDF and I've gone, I'll just convert it for them. No big deal. I'm not going to bug them. And, I forget the one I end up using. Small PDF, I think, is a site that does a really good job that I've used before. But I've definitely tried some that have done a pretty horrible job. Where like you feed in a PDF and what it gives you back, the spacing's all wrong, like headers become footers, everything is just wonky. So if Zoho does a good job in it, it would be nice because, like you're saying, there are third-party APIs we can use for this. But if we don't have to, it's always nice to just keep it all inside of Zoho.
Yeah.
All right. I think that covers it here for the news this week. So let's jump right on into our implementation of the week. All right. So this one was built out by Josh and myself inside of a client account. Mostly Josh, a little bit of me. This is automated file transferring from Zoho Forms to CRM to WorkDrive. So there's a really common thing that happens where we're building out a CRM for a client. We set up some type of function where WorkDrive folders are created automatically for accounts, maybe contacts, maybe deals within those. And then throughout the course of that client's process, they may have opportunities to gather files from clients as part of their flow. If you're like a staffing agency, this might be a resume. If you're a construction agency, it might be a blueprint, whatever it may be. You're going to capture some type of file and you want it to land in WorkDrive. So there's multiple ways you could do this. You could create an external share URL for WorkDrive and send that directly to the client. That would be fine. A lot of the times, though, what we find is that these files are uploaded as a part of a different form submission. So it's like, hey, here's my project specs with like typed in fields and dimensions and the address and all that. And by the way, here's a file upload that I'm just going to add to that Zoho form and submit. So what we do here is we essentially set up a file upload field inside of the CRM and inside of the Zoho form. A really important note is that in CRM, you'll need to set the file upload limit of that field to more than one. I think it's either 1 or 5. It's like a checkbox. So set it to 5. Then whenever that form is submitted, it will add a new copy of that file to the field. So if they've already submitted it in the past and they're resubmitting it, you'll have 2 uploads into that field inside of CRM. In our case here, we only want 1. So what we do, we want that most recent. So what we do is set up a function where when that update is registered, we'll run a script that looks at all of the files that are within that file upload field, finds the one that's the newest, and then we get rid of all of the others. Then what we do is we set the name of that file programmatically. In this case, it was a resume that was going to be uploaded. And so we set the name to first name, last name, -resume. So we know exactly that it's always going to be the same name as the previous file that was uploaded. Then we can just upload that file, the most newly created PDF that has been renamed. We grab it and we send it over to WorkDrive with a little overwrite setting set to true so that it will replace a file that it finds in that WorkDrive folder if the names perfectly match. And in our case, we've set it up such that they always will. So then at the end of the day, while in the interim, there were multiple files in each of these places, once the process is done, you're just going to have that most recent file in the CRM as well as inside of WorkDrive, so that you'll be able to use it confidently, knowing that you don't have an old version of anything that's been provided as a part of that flow. So big one there, just because you can't really, you hypothetically could run the whole thing through Flow, I guess, with Zoho Forms, and then just like download the images, reach into WorkDrive. We just found that this is a pretty elegant way to do it. And then the added benefit is that for a user that is in a CRM record, if they want that resume, they technically don't have to go to WorkDrive. It still is in that file upload field.
Yeah.
The only consideration I will add is if you're doing this at a really high volume or with files that are a little large, you probably actually want to delete them completely out of CRM and only store them inside of WorkDrive, purely because of file storage limits in CRM. You get a lot out of the gate, but if you do hit that limit, the price to raise it is not a good deal. And so we'll oftentimes, in this case, it's PDFs and it's a low volume business where it's like, yeah, you get the convenience of having it right in CRM if you want it. If these were like larger image files or like blueprints or things like that that are bigger, yeah, you probably actually want to remove it from CRM completely and just use this as a pass-through. So couple little like options here that you might choose from if you recreate this at home, but definitely a nice one just to create that like through line process where the file gets where it needs to go.
Yeah, I mean, and so an interesting question, that because the majority of like why you had to set this up this way is specifically because you were using Zoho Forms, right? Because
Yep.
when the file upload field was just set to one, like to only hold one file, which is the default, I'm pretty sure,
Yep.
then Zoho Forms, if there was a file already in there and somebody wanted to submit, because they're using Zoho Forms to update existing records, and the problem
Yep.
is
They're already going to be in there.
If they're already in there and there's already a file in that file upload field, then on the Zoho Forms side, it says, oh, I can't put anything in this file upload field, so I'm just not going to push
I'm done.
any information from this
done.
form entry at all.
Yep.
And yeah, so that's a big problem. So I guess another workaround could be, you can just add, can't you have like Zoho form files get just added as attachments to
I
the
believe
CRM
so.
record?
Yeah, I
Obviously,
believe
the
so.
caveat there is that then you just have to hope that like which file is which. Hopefully they have
And in
good
this case,
names
they
and everything like
upload
that.
2 files. They actually upload
Yeah.
2 files. In this, I'm only talking about the like one file that flows through, but in this case, there's actually 2. So if they both landed in attachments, we'd have to get the 2 newest files and then make some type of assumption based on the provided name of the file, which like, who knows?
It's coming
Who
from a
knows?
person,
Like,
so could be just like 1275-A,
like if
right?
it's a resume, the word resume is probably in the file name,
I can't
but
guarantee
we can't
that.
be 100% certain. Yeah.
Yeah, great.
But yeah, other approach to this too could be you could take those file upload fields in the form, punt those to flow with a workflow where it gives you that download link, and then or with a webhook, and then run the file side specifically through Zoho Flow. So there's kind of a lot of ways that you can get to this endpoint. We just felt like this was the most elegant in this particular case. All right. So with that, this is funny. I didn't do this on purpose. We have a really well-fitting code share for this implementation. So let's jump right on into that. All right. So this is understanding file upload fields in Zoho CRM using Deluge. What a coincidence. Greg, you want to kind of take us through this one?
Yeah. So this one, this is going to walk us through specifically the process of if I wanted to rename the file of a file upload field, which there's not, you can't just tell it, I want to give it a new name. You actually have to download the file, rename the file, re-upload the file to replace it, and remove the old one. Right. So it's actually, similar to what, we just saw with the implementation of, it's kind of this like little bit of a hot potato / shell game of kind of shuffling things around. So, so the first thing that you have to do is fetch the CRM record. And in this one, we're always using invoke URLs because you tend to get just more complete record information than if you're just doing this.
You'll have like random little fields. You'll have like random little fields that won't come out with the like just get records deluge action. Like pipeline and deals is a common one.
Yep, exactly. So you get the record, then you can get the actual file upload field, and it has an ID. So you then use that ID to then download the file from the Zoho file system. The sort of esoteric, we have no idea how big it is or where it is.
The magical ZFS, Zoho file system in the background, the magic of the cloud.
Yeah. So then you download the file. So now the file is sitting in your Deluge script in some form, like a tender little sparrow. And then you rename it. You can do this .set file name on that file variable, and then we will just repeat the process now of re-upload that new version of the file back to the Zoho file system from whence it came, and then replace the ID on the file upload field with this new renamed file ID from the ZFS. And then this one also shows how you can delete the old file.
This is one of the funniest parameters, I think, here that I've seen in the Zoho sphere. So if you want to delete a file, you use this hidden API parameter called _delete. And you would think, if I want to delete a file, I would probably set delete to true, right? That's what one might think. No, you set it to null. Just passing the parameter without a value triggers the deletion of that particular file. So not how I would have assumed that's done, but
no. And I will let all of you know that is also the same way if you want to remove a subform row from a subform. It's the same. It's the same thing. So Zoho likes to use that little _delete in a couple of spots. So
actually, two ways too that a subform. Little bonus tip for the listeners: be careful with subforms, because if you are, let's say, adding a row to a subform and you want to not delete the other ones, if whatever you add to that subform parameter as a list, basically like each row has an ID. If you don't want a row to be deleted, you better put that ID back in your list, even if you're just going to add one row, because it will delete those.
I think that actually has been changed on the back end.
Really?
I don't think that would be nice. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think by default now it will add, it will append to the existing subform. Yes.
I know a lot of people have gotten into trouble with that exact scenario where you don't think that that's how it's going to work. Maybe haven't tested it on a record that has a bunch of data, and you turn it on and a bunch of people lose their quotes and they get really mad at you. So that would be nice if they've changed that.
Yeah, on the back end, now the default is it will append to the rows. So, but that does mean that if you are recompiling a list of subform entries, if that subform row is present in there somewhere, you do need to find the existing ID and include it in your map so that you don't create a duplicate row.
Good call.
So it's always the trade-off. It's either you're more likely to accident. I guess in the world of big data, it's better to accidentally duplicate something than to accidentally delete something forever, right? So
it's that classic. It's what the law of complex systems. Everything has a good trade-off and a bad trade-off. So with any good thing, there's something bad, and you just take the one that makes the most sense. And I think it seems like Zoho did that well there.
Yep.
All right. So with that, thanks to Renato, we've got our code share. Let's jump now over to what's new on Zenatta.com. All right. So this week we've got a blog on dropshipping with Zoho using Shopify, Printful, and Zoho. Printful is more of a recommendation here. Of course, whatever products you have on Shopify would kind of work similarly for this flow. So I guess Wayne saw somewhere on the internet that dropshipping is all the rage. So we wanted to give kind of a guide here because it does actually work quite well in Zoho. You have the ability to back order, ship to customer location from vendor. I mean, like, you've got all those big picture pieces. So we walk through here just setting up Shopify account, setting up Printful. There's actually what we use for like our employees merch. We give them a coupon, they buy a bunch of shirts. We don't have to print them or hold them at any point in time. Nice thing with Printful is that you don't pay for any inventory. They're like a print on demand. So like we don't have to like front load $1,000. It gets burned down over time. It's like we just pay as an employee wants a new shirt or a teddy bear or whatever the crazy things that Josh puts on our store may be. Then you connect Printful with Shopify and then connect Shopify into Zoho inventory and you're pretty much good to go. If you are going down this path, make sure to check out this blog and watch this video from Josh and maybe a couple other on our site. There are some like universally helpful automations that you can put in place for this flow. Like by default, the Shopify order will come in as a sales order, but because it's Shopify, we do know that it's paid. So we really want like an invoice and a customer payment. And maybe we also want to create a package so that we can remember to ship it. So we've got some videos on there of like some pretty universally useful e-commerce stuff that you probably want to do in inventory. So if this blog is interesting, make sure to check out those videos over on youtube.com/Zenatta. They'll be really helpful and should get you most of what you need, honestly, to spin this up for yourself. All right. And with that, I guess we're ready to jump on over to our YouTube channel and check out our tip of the week. All right, there I am. So this video this week is a tutorial on how to use queries inside a Zoho CRM. So our tip last week kind of went over these at a high level. What do they do? Why might I use one? In this case, I go through an example. So we essentially create a query that's going to show us closed won quotes within a particular account. And then I'll actually show you how to add that to your Canvas view. Like we mentioned last week, queries are currently only available for display in Canvas views and kiosks. They will come to the default view eventually, but we don't have a timeline on that. And again, really the use case of a query is a non-code way to create a custom related list. So if you want like a filtered list of contacts on your account, you can do that with the query. So you want like active contacts or, billing contacts. You can create these different queries to visualize those and then add them in. Again, that big benefit being you don't have to code, right? So if you're watching us on YouTube, I'm just going through like, hey, I want quotes related to accounts. I want to filter them based on the stage, right? Like it's pretty straightforward to set this up. And like we always mentioned, it's just nice when these things can be done by citizen users who might not be coders. And even for me, like as someone who's pretty sophisticated inside of Zoho, related lists are tricky for me because they require XML, and I'm bad at XML, and a lot of people are. The minute that you take me out of JSON data, I'm upset. So I really like these because it would actually allow me, even being someone who's pretty good at this, to make these a lot more easily than my other option would have been. So really nice. I'm excited for these to come to the default layouts. That's kind of the one thing that's missing right now, where I think not everybody's in Canvas. I personally like the normal layout of Zoho. I don't really like Canvas very much. So I will be excited when these are released for those standard layouts as well.
Yeah. And so in the video, do you also go over like specifically of how to attribute so that you're filtering by like the related, like you said that you're getting a list of what was it, sales orders? What'd you say?
Quotes.
So you're getting a list of quotes attributed to a particular account, right?
Yep.
How do you get that account ID filter in there?
Yeah, so it's not really obvious. Before I did this, I did it wrong the first time, and then I did it right the second time. So if you check the screen here, the module field where I selected quotes, that's the data that you want in the list. Mm-hmm. The related module you'll see are all lookup fields. So this would be like your parent record. Now, I do think I could actually add like account name and deal name here. And then I think it's going to filter based on where I put it. So if I put it in the account, it's going to use account name. If I put it in deal, it would use the deal name. So you should be able to have like a one quotes query that has lots of different supported like related modules. And then you just drag it in where you need it, and it picks up that context and selects the correct parent record. Well, sweet. I think that is it for this week in the world of Zoho. So, oh yeah, thanks, Freddie. Another angel got their wings this week. We're officially at 21,000. Look at that, 21,000 subscribers over on YouTube. Who would have ever thought that we would we'd be over 20K at all? It's been
now the channel can drink.
Yeah, there you go. Finally, I've had to abstain for 4 years as we've built this channel to 21,000, and party time all around. Greg can have his first sip of alcohol.
Oh, ever. Well, actually, no. My first sip of alcohol was technically when my mom had bought some orange juice from Costco, and it accidentally fermented. So I did have, so that's the closest I've had to alcohol before, was having orange juice that had gone bad and kind of bubbled itself over time. So yeah, that Band-Aid's already been ripped.
Better than nothing. With that, I think we're ready to wrap up the show for this week. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in and watching. We always appreciate you checking us out and the ongoing support over there on YouTube. If you want to get in touch with anyone at Zenatta, see how we can help you out, just head over to zenatta.com and click on book a meeting. We'd love to chat. In addition to that, over on the website, we'll have complete episodes of the show, as well as links to all the stories we discussed today. And if you want that news delivered to your inbox every Monday morning, be sure to also subscribe to our newsletter.
And if you want access to the code share we discussed, head over to club.zenatta.com, our online community where we not only share those code shares, but lots of Zoho users get together and answer each other's questions. And if you want to get your team trained up on the key Zoho apps in less than a week, head over to zenatta.com/training.
And as always, we always appreciate when you like and subscribe here on YouTube, as well as your choice of podcast app. We'll see you next Friday.